Trump always he defends himself and he says he made the perfect call. He did the perfect this.
Oh,
he
yes.
did the perfect that.
Many times.
Boy, a new poll out. Really bad news for Donald Trump.
Doesn't seem so perfect.
Americans don't think what he's done is perfect, and these numbers are devastating for him down the line.
The polling this morning is from NPR and Marist, and it shows a majority of Americans, 56%, believe the investigations into former President Trump are fair. That includes the probe into a hush money cover-up, which a lot of people have talked about as, quote, not so serious. Also, election interference, his handling of classified documents, and his involvement in the January 6th events at the U.S. Capitol, the insurrection.
So 56% say fair, 41% say, a 15% spread. You're talking about only 4 in 10 Americans agreeing with Donald Trump.
Most Americans perceive Trump has engaged in improper behavior, a plurality. 46% say the former president has done something illegal, and an additional 29% consider Trump to have done something unethical but not illegal. Only 23% of Americans say Trump has done nothing wrong. 23%.
Elise Jordan, next time...
That's not scaling.
That's not scaling. Next time Donald Trump talks about a perfect phone call or a perfect this or a perfect payoff to a porn star or whatever he talks about, only 23% of Americans, less than one in 4, actually agree with him. The majority of Americans think these investigations are fair. The majority of these Americans think Donald Trump did something wrong. And almost 50% of Americans think he committed a crime.
Is it baked in by now, Joe, though, that Americans just assume that Donald Trump is kind of a, shady scumbag and is going to do this kind of stuff? And, it's part of the package of Donald Trump. That's what I kind of think, because you look at how his numbers are still strong among Republican primary voters, and that's, what's going to propel him to a general with Joe Biden if he, continues on this track. I just wonder if it's something that Republican voters assume now, and so they aren't that bothered.
Yeah, well, Jonathan Lemire, the question is, what are we seeing people breaking away from here, and why might they be breaking away? Why do you only have 23% of Americans who now are saying that Donald Trump did nothing wrong? I say only 23%. I'm sure that number would have been in the 30s or 40s before. But now Republicans are saying, other people are saying, there's an alternative to Donald Trump. And the alternative, of course, is the governor of Florida. We look at the other poll and these investigations. What has he been saying nonstop? They're witch hunts. They're witch hunts. The Republicans on the Hill lying, saying, they're only going after Donald Trump because he's running for president, when they know full well that he calculated that he needed to run for president so he could say they're witch hunts. 56% of Americans say all of these investigations, they think these investigations are fair. That number just is going to just keep going up. And again, it's my 1% rule here. Doesn't matter if Donald Trump doesn't lose 10% in these numbers. If he loses 1%, that means he loses by 1 more percentage point to Joe Biden in Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania, in Georgia and Arizona. And this is a guy that has to gain votes. He's not gaining votes anywhere.
That's right. The margins were small, and every point he loses is going to make his path that much harder going forward. And this certainly may not impact him in the Republican primary. We don't know yet. There certainly seems to be a wish from some Republicans to look for an alternative, whether that's Governor DeSantis or somebody else. But right now, Trump still has the largest piece of that pie. He does. That said, as we have been discussing, that how does this, even if this gets a boost here in 2023, where he plays the witch hunt card and Republicans, or at least his base, rallies around him, well, that base is hardened, yes, but it's also shrunk. So there's that in the Republican Party. But you translate that to a potential general election, it is hard to see any way that these numbers are good for him. It's all bad. And the headlines are just going to continue. It's not just the Manhattan DA now. It's not just his strange effort to relitigate January 6th now, but there's more investigations coming. Georgia, the special counsel, the Mar-a-Lago documents, the list goes on, and that's just going to damage him going further. And that's thin sliver of independents and swing voters that he won in 2016 and helped give him that win. He got enough of those. Well, they broke away from him in 2020, and these polls suggest even more of them will go away from him and potentially in 2024.
That 56%, Mika, becomes 57%, becomes 58%. The 41% becomes 40%, 39%, 38%, as more of the investigations roll forward. And again, Donald Trump can call him a witch hunt all he wants. He's been doing that for years now.
Yeah, it's not working anymore.
Only 41% of Americans believe that.
It used to sort of work in a way. He could whip up attention, but it's all coming down to what Chris Christie said in light of the latest news about the Manhattan DA when Donald Trump announced that he was getting arrested to the world. And everyone was talking about what an indictment would mean. And Chris Christie just said an indictment is not good. It's never good. It's not good. It won't be good. And it's not something that can ever be good for someone. So bad news is coming. And you can see in this polling that Americans are they're not buying into this whole witch hunt thing.
And when you have here, only 23% of Americans think that Donald Trump's done nothing wrong. So that means every time he says it was a perfect call. There's a perfect call to the Georgia Republican Secretary of State that voted for me in 2016. No, overwhelming majority of Americans don't believe you. Only 23% believe you. That means more than 1 in 4 Americans think you're lying. And again, we're playing on the margins here. We're playing with the numbers here, where just very small changes make a very big difference to Donald Trump's future.
Republicans.
I gotta say also with the Republicans looking at this, they've just got to be looking, whether it's Ron DeSantis, whether it's Mike Pence, whether it's Nikki Haley, whoever it is, they've got to be looking and going, we really don't want to go through
a guy who has a J6 choir and makes everyone put their hands on their heart to sing along with the choir, that's just not, that's crazy.
By the way, I know we want to get Michael in here, but I'm so glad you brought that up because it was so deeply offensive to those of us on set that Donald Trump would have a choir of convicts that would be singing, a choir of convicts. And he would elevate them, these rioters who beat the hell out of police officers, who beat the hell out of cops with American flags. Donald Trump.
Hand on his heart. That's a patriotic gesture.
Yeah. Donald Trump praising convicts, praising people who violently tried to overthrow a presidential election. And Jonathan Lemire, yesterday, we actually heard Republicans speaking out against this gross act, this grisly act, and trying to wrap it up in the American flag and patriotism. Come on, man. They're convicts. They're convicts for a reason, because they beat up cops, because they were a part of a riot. And now Donald Trump praising rioters, elevating rioters into a martyr status.
A choir of convicts, a choir of insurrectionists. That is what he given a platform here at that rally in Waco over the weekend. And yes, we did hear some Republicans, largely in the Senate, sort of the same voices, but a few Trump allies mixed in who said, look, this is a bridge too far. We can't support this. Lindsey Graham among them. Good for them. It is indeed the bare minimum, but still good for them. And this is where
I
think we should
say good for them.
Good for them. You'd think this would be a place where we could find unanimity, is denouncing the choir of insurrectionists co-opting patriotic language and songs. That's where we are today in March of 2023.
Yeah, I mean, where we are today, Elise, is we praise Republicans for actually being against the glorification of riots, rioters, and convicts.
When you know that they all are against this. All of the Republican elites in the Senate, because being in the Senate means that you are a Republican elite. They can't stand it, but they're so scared of getting attacked by Donald Trump the way Ron DeSantis is right now, and numbers going down, and with every hit, numbers getting worse, and they're scared.
All right, John.